So I'm here with Casey from SmallAct, and Casey and we met last year at the Nonprofit Technology Conference.
Yep, in person. Yep,
Yep,
that was the first time.
perfect. And then you're going to be there this year too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
For people who don't know, SmallAct, the way that I describe SmallAct is that it's a way for nonprofits really to
Mhm.
connect the dots between their database, their community, and the network.
Yep.
Social media, what's happening there, and how that relates to their donors, their subscribers, their volunteers. Right? Do
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
okay.
Yep.
Do you want to add to that or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think just to that point, it's just kind of helping bring together all of the pieces with the ever-changing social
Mhm.
media spaces, as well as the highly structured CRM spaces, and how do you get that data to work together to help, people be better fundraisers, advocates, peer-to-peer people events. So it's really kind of helping people just get more insight that they've never been able to get before.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. So that's exactly what I want to talk about today. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Now, so I often get into conversations about Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. And the one theme that comes up is that you really can't identify people. There's no way to
Yeah,
segment. In email, email marketing, you can easily segment people based on
exactly.
their behavior, based on their interests. But social media by default, especially something like Facebook, you really
Yeah,
can't identify people based on their actions. So, and Facebook, unfortunately, doesn't let you drill down into insights where you can actually see individual people. You can't
exactly.
create
Yep.
lists of people. Like, these are your top
Yep.
fans. You just can't do that. So I was curious to just talk about why would an organization care about segmenting their Facebook fans? Why would they care? What would the value be?
In terms of the way that I think nonprofits actually have a very unique opportunity that's more powerful than a commercial brand as Coke or something like that is that they already know these people, and so the way our service works, and there can be others too, is that we go from their email and find out who exists on Facebook or Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. And the reason that's important is that then we have the path back to their historical actions with the organization. And so one of the examples, just that we were actually working with CARE, is after we did this kind of profiling in the sense in just understanding where these people exist, figuring out all of the people who had done an advocacy action in the last 12 months who were also on Facebook. So if Facebook won't tell them that, but through doing some of the, and actually referred them to you as well, in your site, taking that email list, getting that into Facebook and advertising to those people or promoting something to those people is very germane because and they can be very specific about taking advocacy action on Facebook or through Facebook versus another set, donors over $1,000 who are also on Facebook. Then they can market to them two things. They can market to them in Facebook through that they can upload a list of emails, right, to people they want to promote some advertising to. But then the other side, they're also getting more sophisticated now through taking the email approach to those people. So if they know that they exist on a platform, they're pretty active, and they have had these historical things like they have taken advocacy actions or donated a certain level, they'll actually change the email subject and body content because they know the person is at least social, right? And they're on Facebook. They'd be very specific about even embedding something that goes right to Facebook. So they're really they and also WGBH in Boston, they are starting to modify their emails based upon where these people are socially so they can optimize their performance.
So one thing that you said, which really kind of caught me, my interest was looking at the historical behavior. If it's one thing that's true about people in general,
Hmm.
because social media really is not about the internet at all. It's about people and how they behave, right?
Yep,
And
exactly.
and one thing that's true is that this may sound kind of pessimistic, but basically people don't change, right? The behavior
Yeah,
that they did last week, the patterns, the beliefs, the approaches, the things they click on, are probably going to be very similar to what they'll do in the future. So
yeah,
if you have the ability to go back and say and look at how people responded to content or
yeah,
what content actually leads someone down a path to sign a petition or
yeah,
leads someone down a path to sign up as a volunteer, With Facebook alone, you can't determine that. You can't. You can just say, oh, this
Correct.
update did really well, but you can't really tie it back. You can say, oh, this got a lot of comments, likes, and shares, but you really can't tie that back to
Yeah.
these are the updates that were instrumental in leading this group of people
Yeah.
down a path to sign a petition or to
Yeah.
volunteer or to donate.
Exactly, and I think that's completely sort of on target because for care, right, maybe there's a different country sort of issue, right, that these specific set of their audience were really passionate about. We'll market to them about that same thing, something new, something different, but like you said, that is right in line with what you already know that they're emotionally connected to, because it's the biggest door that's wide open, but right now it's disconnected, and I think that's really where Facebook becomes a hugely powerful marketing channel when you have these segments, and you can't get them from Facebook, but if you organize your segments and your audiences before going into Facebook, then, and it's that sort of, really cool technology too that you describe and show people where if I know you donated to Zimbabwe, right, I can at least do an advertisement to the people that you know also, because maybe they haven't connected there, but there's more than likely a chance that your connection with that, as well as they'll be more likely to like that than just the general audience. So there's some really cool innovative ways to use that, and the other aspect too, I think this also is very powerful organizations where, like you said, historical actions and interests evolve, right? They don't dramatically change one day to another. They might sort of alter from time to time, but very similar. The one thing that's interesting, though, is by understanding how a person behaves socially, also, we can help organizations find the best way to engage them. And the example that we're seeing is for sustainer gifts, right? So, like, one of the key indicators in terms of all the other data points that may give some insight is if they're web savvy and can do online transactions easily, right? So for us, when we look at a database of people and we see, oh, this specific set of people has no inhibitions online whatsoever, and they're at the right point in their cycle. So what we can help them do is to figure out their ideal sustainer candidates. And so so TPT, the PBS station in St. Louis, they are also doing something similar where they say, okay, instead of just asking for $120, we're going to go after these people for $15 a month because it is more likely that it fits their sort of persona, their behaviors socially, and it's actually it's a 50% bump in revenue. So there's different ways to combine just their behavior socially with the particular campaigns and resources, and then other ones would be people who are more professional, who are sort of managers, directors, VPs, etc. The example that that someone told, well, I talked to the guy who was a VP at Booz Allen, right, and World Wildlife kept just sending him an annual solicitation for $50 each year, and so he's like, I'll give him $50 because that's what they asked, but I could certainly give more. And then just one other thing, when we look at the people who are in the database, we can also listen if they discuss certain topics or if they have them in their bio. And so all of that being said, we're helping them identify parents so that when they're actually going to do a telemarketing campaign, they're going to sort of do it specialized for parents that they can talk about, Curious George and Wild Kratts and all those sort of like age appropriate things, because for people like me, that's the way to get me to be more active. It's more relevant to me. It's a better conversation. It's not weird or awkward. It's great, right? That's what I want to be involved with, and they're more sophisticated because they know what I care about. So it's a more productive conversation. There's different ways to use it in, sort of more general advertising and marketing and so on. But one example is for NWF, when their COO, she was going up to New York to visit someone face to face. And I do believe that social is not intended to replace any existing means of relationship building, right? And so when the major gift officers, it's not about getting them to tweet. It's about helping them understand their donors and prospects better to make a more relevant conversation for both parties. So her example was how to, in the post, he only had like 10 tweets, right? So really not an active Twitter folk. But 2 of them were about climate control. So of all the range of possible things that she could talk to him about when she took the train up to New York, it was about climate, right? Well, how do you feel about that? What are the areas? And so here's some special programs we have that deal with deforestation that is really impacting the climate issues. And that's exactly what he probably cares about.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people asking for lots of money, like a big donation. It's amazing how much they actually don't do any homework at all.
Yeah.
They just call you because you're on a list.
Yeah.
But that first impression is going to be really important. So
yeah, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like the same understanding, and I really believe that understanding a person's passion and their current interests really makes it relevant. So if it's world wildlife, well, here's what I care about for kids. It's like getting kids into sort of experience outdoor things, right, and animals. That too, like on a one-to-one level, that's really useful, but also in a broad sense, it's the same data, but just used on a sort of more broad approach. And one thing that University of Central Florida is working on is they're going to be doing a blitz campaign similar to how FSU had like a single day fundraiser type of thing. They're focusing on the key influential people, like socially. First, there's 600 of them, a personal call. They're going to call all 600 people, even though they're looking for social outcomes, call to build that relationship and kind of get them on board to till the soil before the launch actually happens. So there's all different ways from a broad approach like TPT for kids or for interests or different like wildlife related things for different programs. But it's also high touch. It's all of it kind of comes under the umbrella of relevancy to the right stuff to the right people at the right time.
So a lot of what we're talking about is great, okay? But what kind of advice would you give to the small to medium-sized nonprofit who they're watching this video right now and they're saying, wow, you know what? I love these ideas. Where do I start? How do I actually start looking at my Twitter followers or my Google Plus people or my Pinterest people, that guy? Like what would be maybe the first 3 things to do to actually start, going down this path of making sense of your followers and your fans and identifying the right people?
A couple things, and in terms of understanding where they are, there's some different methods because there's always the concern about do we have the resources to man this effort, and especially with the small ones, that's a concern because there's they wear so many different hats, and so for people starting out, I think there's a couple of things to do. Instead of worrying about necessarily all of the people, pick your top 10. On whatever platform, and just really dive into relationships with them, because it's more important to have high quality relationships than a high number, especially in that setting. So whether it is Pinterest or Google Plus or Twitter or Facebook, just really dive in and then say, hey, we've been talking on Facebook before, but I'd like to have a call with you just to get to know you better. Just different ways that, sort of different 15-minute, 30-minute things you can do to really kind of step up to understand why they support you. What is it about them that they're passionate about for your organization? So it's both a relationship building but also learning exercise would be one. The other thing, and this is just something that we're doing specifically for small organizations, when we have our product launch, we're actually allowing, it's sort of like Dropbox, right? And in the sense that we're giving free accounts to people so they can profile up to 1,000 people for free. So because we want to give them a jump start, the new website that we're launching is called socialvision.io.
When you were talking earlier, I started thinking about this idea of influence, with clout scores and all that stuff.
Yep.
I think influence is I think it's kind of overrated to some degree because
I agree.
What's more important, I think, is interest. So there's influence, totally. I'm Chris Brogan and I have 200,000 million people on Twitter, whatever. Right. But is Chris specifically involved in cerebral palsy? Is he right. really interested in that? Is he directly impacted by that? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he may send out a retweet, maybe, because he's a nice guy. Yeah. Right. But you're really not going to have a long-term, deep relationship with Chris Brogan because
Correct.
he doesn't have the passion. That's not necessarily his interest. So,
Yeah.
I think where you're going is find the people that are already on your side. You just don't really know. You haven't really identified who they are, and maybe a way to segment them or organize them.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of our earlier conversation about resources, right? There's so many undiscovered resources that you already have, of people who have already given you their heart, right? That's one of the hardest things to win. You've already got that. Just use what their talents are, their skill sets, and understanding them. And another good example is National Wildlife Federation. They are doing a hike and seek, right, for kids outdoor kind of education. They looked for the people who were influential. That's part of the deal. But this one in particular was a kindergarten teacher that had kinder chat every Monday at 9 p.m. And so for her, it wasn't just about wildlife, it was about kids and wildlife. So to your point, when you do engage with these people, it's not, she could talk about anything. She could talk about sort of cars or planes or whatever. It's not going to even resonate with her audience either, right? If it's not about kids. And so this was a perfect setting because the program of Kids Outdoors exactly matched up what she really cared about. She was passionate about it and really was something that was important to her and the people who listen to her or subscribe to her, right, or follow her. So I think that's a really important part of when you do find these influential people, what's in it for them, right? As much as an organization wants to sort of, kind of force feed, in some cases, they're getting much more sophisticated now. What's in it for the donor? Right? What's in it for the social advocate? Like, why do they do that? And that's, again, that 10, 15-minute conversation, opening that up, and you can always find ways to sort of combine and their passion with helping you achieve something for your organization. So I think that's a really important, and I agree with you on the sort of whole influential thing. It's not just getting a retweet, it's their passion and love for what you do. And one of the other things that we're going to be releasing as well is in the new platform is a passion indicator and an affinity indicator index, so that if they're passionate about wildlife, they just don't tweet with you much. Well, that's still good, right? Because they're passionate about the subject matter. Just you need to engage them in the right way. And the affinity is how engaged with you are they, right? So kind of combining different ways like subject matter, as well as directly with your organization, figuring that out to kind of help build the right type of engagement for the right people as well.